Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time that you're watching this. Now, today we are going to dive into a little story. As we are discovering who we are, we need to shape our character, we need to shape our thoughts, we need to shape our behavior. We need to understand that regardless of what we do, there are consequences that will come. So if you plant a good seed, you will reap a good seed. If you plant a bad seed, you will reap a bad seed. And so if you plant a good seed, you get good. Plant bad, you get bad. And this story is about the man after God's own heart. Now, David was a man after God's own heart, but it doesn't mean that he was not a sinful man. It just means that even in his sinful nature, he did repent. And I want us to look at the consequences in which David had. Now, David went and slept with Uriah's wife, and he did everything to cover it up. And he thought that in all this, nobody saw. And he thought if he closed the matter, then it was closed. But later on, we see a prophet coming to him and telling him, why would you do this to a man that has nothing, and you take everything from him? And later on, we see David really, really remorseful and thinking, what did I do? How could this be? God, forgive me. And he asked for forgiveness. But we see that at the end of it, the baby that Bathsheba was pregnant with died. And at all this, we see David really changing his life even towards the end. Now, the story doesn't end there. Most people know about that. But there was a man called Ahithophel. Now, Ahithophel was a man who was Bathsheba's uncle. Now, when you look at Ahithophel, you may wonder, who is this man? I encourage you to go and read the story. But here is a small story about him. Ahithophel was building up anger within him, and he was none other than David's closest advisors. Now, he advised David for so long. But then a time came when Absalom decided to betray the father. Now, when Absalom decided to betray the father, David, I hope you're with me till there, Ahithophel feels that this is the moment for me to shine. Ahithophel decides to go and join forces with Absalom. And he goes and he betrays David, and he advises Absalom on what to do. And when he does this, he's not doing because he is loyal to Absalom. He's doing it because the man that he was working for, this is David, went and killed Uriah, who was the husband to Ahithophel's niece, who was Bathsheba. Are we together up to there? And so the trend did not end by David just being remorseful and being forgiven. There were people around him that were affected by the situation. And probably we never thought about that. We never thought about Uriah's mother. We never thought about Uriah's uncles. We never thought about Uriah's nephews and nieces. We never thought about even the wife herself, how she felt losing the husband. We always end up with Solomon coming out of this marriage and everything working out in the end. But the thing is, there are those people who carried it in their hearts, like Ahithophel. Ahithophel, after many years, still didn't forgive David. And at the end of it, he plotted the death of David by joining forces with the other side, because he knew everything about David. Now, you may wonder, why am I telling you all this, and how is this related to my character? I want you to understand that every action that you have today has a consequence. And even if you ask God for forgiveness, and when you do and he forgives you, it doesn't necessarily mean that there are people around you that won't be affected. It could be you have made a promise and you have not kept that promise. It could be you have made a covenant with God and you have broken that covenant. It could be you have lusted over something and God has forgiven you. It could be very many things that you have done. You know yourself. But even then, and this is not a moment of regret, because we are in a season of discovering our identity, we need to understand that every action has a consequence because of our nature. Because we are surrounded by people, it means if today you refuse to obey, somebody else will suffer. If today you refuse to do what you are asked, somebody else will suffer. For example, if you are in a chain link where you're working, there's a CEO, there's a manager, and then maybe there's you and other people, or you're that manager, or you're that CEO. If today you refuse to show up for a meeting that you committed to, it means somebody else will have to step up and cover for you. And that means somebody else will step up and cover for someone else, but there will be some place that is missing. So that means that without you understanding, there is a gap somewhere. And in order for you to shape your character, in order for you to understand who you are, you need to understand that whatever you do has a consequence. So if God has called you into a certain space, you need to do it. Otherwise, there's somebody who will let go. Maybe somebody will die like Uriah, and maybe it's not a physical death. Maybe somebody else will be affected in silence like Solomon's mom. Maybe somebody else will be like Ahithophel, who will carry it in their hearts and wait for a day where they will act it out. You do not know the consequences, but understand this. If you choose to manipulate like David did, because David chose to manipulate the situation, if you choose to manipulate the situation, God is watching and God is just. If you choose to manipulate the situation, God will send his servant like Nathan. If you choose to manipulate the situation, there are people who Satan will use to actually come and make your life miserable like Ahithophel. Because at this moment, while Ahithophel and Absalom were planning all these things, David was so scared of his life and he went into hiding. And all this while, Ahithophel was still loyal to David. And I want you to understand that Ahithophel was coming from a place of anger. Nathan brought the situation to David, and David was remorseful, and God forgave him. But the thing is, David never went and asked forgiveness to the family. He never went and said, I am sorry to the family. Probably Ahithophel would have been there and would have listened. But you see, Ahithophel was somebody, again, who was pretending to be a friend. Talks a lot also about the discernment of David, because all these years Ahithophel was not genuine. But the thing is, you need to be at a place where whatever decisions you're making today, how are they affecting tomorrow? Is it that you just say, I'm sorry, and you move on? Do you know that whatever seed you plant, even if you say you're sorry, something has shifted? Yes, the mercies of God are there. Yes, the grace of God is there. And yes, life can be transformative because of God. But imagine if your life is to manipulate situations so that you can gain. If your life is to lie so that you can gain. If your life is to go and manipulate situations so that you can gain. Imagine how many seeds you have planted in the lives of people. Imagine the things that you have done to cause other people's failure. Today my challenge is, and probably you may not be among these people, my challenge to you is, if you are a person and you know that you lie so that you can get your way, you manipulate people so that you can get your way, remember that God is watching and there will be consequences. If you are a person who's never done this, pray to your God that he may help you, not from a place of pride, but from a place of humility, that God will help you never be found at a place where you lie or manipulate situations to gain. I pray that even as God is building us, we are going to understand that our characters are important, that how we carry ourselves even as we are spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ is important, that we need to cover our eyes, we need to cover our ears, we need to cover everything, our tongues, so that we do not find ourselves lusting over things that will cause us to have consequences, that you will not lust after someone's job, you will not lust after someone's wife, you will not lust after someone's car, you will not lust after someone's money, you will not lust after someone's relationship, you will not lust after someone's breakthroughs, that you will fully depend on God so that you can save souls. Your actions today will shape your future and the future of others. So stay awake, stay alert in the kingdom and in the spirit, and do that which is expected. Have a blessed day, have a blessed afternoon, have a blessed evening, and see you next time on our Daily Nuggets. Bye-bye.